Politicians often like to take credit for positive developments, especially when they're running for re-election. But how much credit do they really deserve?
Sometimes politicians will even take credit for work someone else did. That's why our political editor, Mark Maxwell, is here to verify a staggering claim.
Congresswoman Cori Bush is making some bold claims in her bid for a third term in Congress. Maybe you've seen the billboards. $2 billion she claims she's brought back to St. Louis. An enormous amount if it's true. Most congressional leaders claim a lot lower number. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, the top Democrat in Congress, only boasts bringing $21.9 million back to his district in 1 year. So did Congresswoman Cori Bush really outperform him by 100-fold? Let's verify. Our sources: congressional voting and spending records, the U.S. Census Bureau, and the Internal Revenue Service. In December 2022, Congresswoman Cori Bush's office said she secured over $18 million in community project funding, commonly known as earmarks. Then, in November 2023, she reported delivering $27.4 million. This March, she said she secured $13.7 million, and later in March, she added it all up to more than $41 million in direct funding. She repeated that total again in early May. Then, something changed. Suddenly, this eye-popping claim started showing up on billboards, campaign signs, and Facebook ads. Some paid for by her campaign, others paid for with your tax dollars. So we asked her to show us the numbers. Here's a breakdown of what they sent us. That $41 million in community project funding, that much we can verify. Plus $1.1 billion in American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds, another $770 million in federal grant funds, $126 million in HUD or FEMA disaster relief, and $33.4 million in Department of Transportation funds. So let's start there. Yes, she did support those specific projects back in 2021, but those raised grants are now funded in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. She voted against it. Under the ARPA funds, Bush's office counted a round number, $197 million under the child tax credit. Data from the IRS showed that number was actually $155.6 million. Under HUD and FEMA funding, Bush's office listed $27.6 million for the Bi-State Development Agency, but the error is right there in the name. Those funds are shared between the Bi-State, Missouri, and Illinois, not just for her district, so that total is misleading. She's also claiming credit for delivering $82 million in federal disaster relief, which, of course, requires first a disaster and then a presidential declaration. Yes, members of Congress can support those things, but they can't take credit for the disaster or the presidential declaration, making this claim misleading. Outside of that $41 million in community grant funding or traditional earmarks, every other category was raising big questions or showed glaring errors. So we decided to dig into that $770 million in federal grant funds she was claiming credit for, and at first we couldn't find any records or votes that would lead to any of it, and they wouldn't hand the records over. So eventually, they agreed to meet us here, where we could review their records, they could show us the math, and we dug into each grant line by line. At first glance, inside her office, we counted 9 line items in those federal grants that were duplicated, counted twice. We deleted those and took notes detailing the rest. Later, we reconstructed that list and found it added up to be much smaller, $411 million in grants to various groups like WashU or SLU, sometimes federal housing projects, and an even smaller number actually spent in the district so far, just $208.7 million. Dig in even further, and we found some of those grants existed back in 1994 or 2001 or 2002, obviously years before Bush would ever arrive in Congress. Her office now concedes she may have voted to continue some of those funds or may not have voted for them at all. Bush's office has known for weeks we were looking into these numbers, and Monday afternoon, a revision. They told us they'd found more money, enough to make that $2 billion number whole, but not soon enough for us to verify. They claim they'll hand those figures over in a spreadsheet and a public website Tuesday. With your Verify, I'm Mark Maxwell.
What would you like us to verify as election season approaches? Just email verify@kstk.com.